He handed the alien girl a towel, but her reaction rendered him speechless. The ship's warning systems blared as Axel Morgan fought to keep his vessel from becoming a permanent addition to the dusty landscape of Tarus 9. The sweat beaded on his forehead as he wrestled with the controls. His muscular frame tensed against the violent shuddering of the cockpit. "Come on, baby. Just a little further," he muttered, his light brown hair plastered to his forehead. The trading post was visible now, a ramshackle collection of buildings that looked like they'd been assembled from the scraps of a dozen different spacecraft. It wasn't much, but it beat crashing. In the open desert, the ship's port thruster gave out with a sputtering cough, sending the craft into a dangerous spin. Axel's hands flew across the control panel, compensating with bursts from the remaining functional thrusters. His jaw clenched as he fought gravity and physics calling upon years of experience to keep himself alive. With a bone-jarring impact that threw him against his restraints, the ship skidded across the hard pan, kicking up a massive plume of reddish dust before grinding to a halt just outside the trading post. Music or shit. Axel groaned, rubbing his bruised shoulder as he unstrapped himself. A quick systems check confirmed what he already knew. He wouldn't be leaving Tarus 9 anytime soon. The damage was extensive: fried navigation systems, a blown thruster, and a hairline crack in the fuel containment cell. He grabbed his emergency pack and blaster before popping the hatch. Hot, dry air rushed in, carrying the smell of dust and machine oil. Axel squinted against the harsh sunlight as he surveyed his surroundings. The trading post looked even more decrepit up close. A collection of prefabed structures and converted shipping containers, huddled together, like they were afraid of the vast desert around them. A small crowd of curious onlookers had gathered at a safe distance, mostly aliens of various species. None looked particularly friendly, but none were reaching for weapons either. "Small mercies. Nice landing," called a gruff voice. A burly, four-armed alien with leathery orange skin approached, would pass for a smile, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "You managed not to hit anything important. I'm Dare, unofficial harbor master of this hole." Axel jumped down from his ship landing with the practiced ease of someone used to varied gravity environments. Axel Morgan had a bit of engine trouble. "Any chance of finding parts around here?" Draw made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Parts on target doorways." "You're funny. Human. But Merck's scrapyard might have something you can jury-rig. In the meantime, you'll want a drink and a place to stay." He gestured towards the center of the trading post. "The rusty bolts. Your best bet. Only cantina for 50 clicks in any direction." "Thanks," Axel said, slinging his pack over his shoulder. "Lead the way." The rusty bolt lived up to its name, a squat corrugated metal structure that looked like it had been welded together by a blind man during an earthquake. Inside, it was dimly lit and smelled of alien liquor and unwashed bodies. Like collection of miners, drifters, and what Axel strongly suspected were pirates occupied the scattered tables. "Fresh meat," someone muttered as he entered, but Axel ignored it. He'd been in rougher places. The key was to act like you belonged and keep your hand near your weapon. He made his way to the bar, a slab of metal that might once have been part of a ship's hull. The bartender, a multi-eyed insectoid creature, clicked its mandibles questioningly. "Whatever's least likely to kill a human," Axel said, placing a credit chip on the counter. As the bartender turned to prepare his drink, movement caught Axel's eye. A slender figure weaved between the tables, carrying a tray of drinks. Even in the dim light, her skin gleamed an unmistakable emerald green, contrasting strikingly with her flowing silver-white hair. She moved with a natural grace that seemed out of place in the grimy cantina. The humanoid woman Axel wasn't familiar with. Her species delivered drinks to a table of ruffly looking aliens. One of them, a scarred Krex with a cybernetic eye, grabbed her wrist as she turned to leave. "Why so cold today, sweet thing?" The crack slurred, yanking her closer. "Sit on my lap for a while." The woman's face remained impassive, but Axel could see tension in her shoulders. "Please release me, Gorn. I have other customers. They can wait." Yor growled, his grip tightening. His companions laughed, encouraging him. Axel's jaw tightened. He'd seen this scene play out on 100 different worlds, and it never ended well for the server. He knew he should mind his own business. He was stranded on an unfamiliar planet with a busted ship and limited resources. Getting involved in local disputes was the last thing he needed. But damn it, some things were universal. and were one of them. He downed his drink in one gulp. It tasted like turpentine, mixed with battery acid, and pushed away from the bar. "Excuse me," he said, approaching the table. All eyes turned to him, including a pair of startled iridescent ones belonging to the green-skinned woman. "The lady asked you to let go." Silence fell over the nearby tables. Gorn's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused, on Axel, scanning him from head to toe. "Mind your own business, human." The Krex growled, "This is between me and the girl." Axel shrugged, maintaining a casual stance even as he calculated distances and angles for the fight that was inevitably coming. See, that's where you're wrong. When you put your hands on someone who doesn't want to be touched, you make it everyone's business." The woman's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of something. Surprise hope crossing her features before her expression smoothed again. Gore released her wrist and stood slowly, towering over Axel by at least a foot. His companion spread out, forming a loose semicircle. The cantina grew quieter. Patron, shifting to get a better view or to move out of the potential line of fire. "You know, what we do to nosy humans on Terrace 9? Gore asked, his voice dangerously soft. Axel smiled, the kind of smile that never reached his eyes. "Let me guess, something unoriginal and painful." The first punch came exactly as he expected. A telegraphed right hook that Axel easily ducked. He countered with a sharp jab to Gorn's midsection, finding the soft spot just below the ribs where most humanoid species kept vital organs. The Krex doubled over with a wheezing gasp, and all hell broke loose. Axel moved with practiced efficiency, using his environment and his opponent's size against them. He slammed one alien into a table, used another as a shield, and employed a chair to devastating effect against the third. His years of experience in rough spaceports served him. Well, he wasn't the strongest or the biggest, but he was fast and he fought dirty. When it was over, Gorn and his crew lay groaning on the floor. Axel stood in the center of the destruction, breathing hard but otherwise unharmed, save for split knuckles and what would become an impressive bruise on his jaw. The cantina remained silent for a long moment before conversation slowly resumed, patrons turning back to their drinks as if nothing had happened. Apparently, bar fights weren't unusual, enough to warrant extended attention. The green-skinned woman approached him, those iridescent eyes studying him with newfound interest. Up close, her features were even more striking. High cheekbones, a straight nose, and full lips currently pressed into a thin line of concern. "That was incredibly stupid," she said, her voice musical despite the scolding tone. "Gorn works for Captain Vex. They'll come after you now." Axel winced as he flexed his bruised hand. "You're welcome." A hint of a smile touched her lips before vanishing. "I didn't ask for your help." "No, you didn't," he agreed. "Got a name?" She hesitated, then nodded slightly. "Nara. And you've just made yourself the most wanted man on Taurus." "9, stranger." Axel Morgan. He glanced at the groaning pirates. "How long before their friends show up?" "Not long." Nara looked around the cantina, then leaned closer. "You should leave now." Axel grimaced. "My ship's damaged. I'm not going anywhere for a while." Nara's expression shifted, calculation replacing caution. "Then, you'll need somewhere to hide until you can repair it. I finish my shift in an hour. Meet me behind the cantina." Before he could respond, she was gone, weaving through the tables as if nothing had happened. Axel watched her go, wondering if he'd just been offered help or led into a trap. Either way, he didn't have many options. He tossed some extra credits on the bar for the damage and slipped out the back door to wait. The desert air cooled rapidly as Terrace 9's sun dipped below the horizon. Axel leaned against the back wall of the cantina. One hand resting casually near his blaster trust wasn't something he gave easily, especially on backwater planets where betrayal was often just another form of currency. The back door creaked open, and NRA slipped. Out she'd changed from her serving outfit into practical utility. Pants and a fitted jacket that hugged her slender frame. A small pack was slung over her shoulder, and Axel noticed the outline of what was likely a weapon beneath her jacket. "You're still here?" she said, sounding mildly surprised. Not many places to go, he replied with a shrug. Though I'm starting to wonder if waiting for the woman who might be leading me into a trap was my smartest move. A smile flickered across her face, revealing teeth that gleam pearly white against her emerald skin. If I wanted you dead, I would have just let Gorn handle it fair point. Axel pushed himself off the wall. So what's the plan? Nera glanced around her silver-white hair, catching the faint light from the cantina's windows. Not here. Follow me and stay quiet. She led him through a maze of narrow alleys between storage containers and makeshift dwellings. The trading post was larger than it had appeared from the air, with hidden pockets of life tucked away from the main thoroughfares. Occasionally, they passed aliens of various species who nodded to Nera but regarded Axel with suspicious glances. Popular girl, Axel murmured after the third such encounter. I've been here a while, she replied without elaboration. They eventually reached the outskirts where Axel's damaged ship sat like a wounded animal. Nera approached it, without hesitation running her hand along the scorched hole. Tarsian model right pre-galactic alliance but solid engineering. These things were built to last. She tapped a section near the damaged thruster. Your problem's not as bad as it looks. The motivator's fried and the coolant. System's compromised but the core is intact. Axel raised an eyebrow. You know ships? I know a lot of things. Nera met his gaze directly. Before I was serving drinks to handsy pirates, I was an engineer on a Venturi cruiser. What happened? Her expression darkened. Captain Vex happened. He raided our ship, killed anyone who resisted, and sold the rest of us to the highest bidder. I ended up here. Axel felt a surge of anger on her behalf. I'm sorry. Don't be, I survived. She turned back to the ship. And I can fix this, but we'll need parts. Good parts, not the junk they sell at Merck's scrapyard. Let me guess, the only place to get those parts is from Vex's ship, Nera's. Smile was sharp. Quick learner. Yes. Vex's cruiser. The Scourge has everything we need. It docks here every 2 weeks for supplies and to collect protection money from the locals. It's due tomorrow and you want to steal from it. It wasn't a question. I want passage off this rock, she corrected. You help me get away from Vex. I'll help fix your ship. Seems fair. Axel studied her, trying to read past the composed exterior. There was more to her story, he was certain, but he couldn't deny he needed her expertise. Deal, he said finally. But we'll need a place to lay low until tomorrow. Gore's friends will be looking for me. Nera nodded. I have a place. It's not much, but it's secure. Her place turned out to be a converted storage unit on the far edge of the trading post. It was small but surprisingly comfortable inside, with a living area that doubled as a kitchen, a tiny bathroom, and what appeared to be a workshop taking up most of the space. Home sweet home, she said, dropping her pack on a table cluttered with tools and mechanical parts. Make yourself comfortable, I'll see what I can scrub for dinner. As she moved around the small space, Axel found himself watching her with growing interest. There was an efficiency to her movements, a confidence that spoke of someone who had adapted to survive. The emerald tone of her skin seemed to shift suddenly with the lighting, sometimes deeper, sometimes with an almost luminescent quality. You're staring, she noted without looking up from the food she was preparing. Sorry, in an oracle said, not feeling particularly sorry. Your species, I don't think I've encountered it before. Vidian, she supplied. We're not common in this sector. Most of my people live in the Emerald Nebula systems. It suits you, he said. The name, I mean, Vidian. She glanced up, a hint of amusement in her iridescent eyes. Is that your attempt at flirting human? Would it work? If it was, her laugh was unexpected and musical. You're either very brave or very foolish, Axel Morgan. You've just made enemies of the most dangerous pirates in the sector, and now you're trying to charm their property. You're not property, he said, his voice hardening. And I've made enemies of worse than. Vex, something shifted in her expression. A softening, perhaps, or area assessment. Now have you now, you'll have to tell me those stories sometime. If we survive tomorrow, I will. They ate a simple meal of reconstituted protein and local vegetables that tasted better than Axel expected. As they talked, he learned more about Taurus 9 and the grip Vex held over the trading post. Nera spoke with a quiet intensity about the pirate captain's cruelty, and Axel began to understand that her desire to escape went beyond personal freedom. As the night wore on, the small space seemed to grow more intimate. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by moments of charged silence, where their eyes would meet and linger a beat too long. The attraction between them was palpable, an electric current that intensified with each passing hour. When Nera rose to clear their plates, Axel caught her wrist gently, so different from Gorn's brutal grip earlier. She stilled, looking down at his hand on her skin, the contrast of his tan fingers against her emerald complexion strangely beautiful. "Thank you," he said simply. "For the meal, for the help." "Don't thank me yet," she replied, her voice softer than before. "We still have to survive tomorrow. All the more reason not to waste." Tonight her eyes met his, searching. Whatever she saw there must have satisfied her, because she slowly set the plates down and moved closer. "Humans," she murmured, reaching out to trace the line of his jaw with slender fingers always so direct. "Is that a problem?" he asked, his pulse quickening at her touch. "No," she said, leaning in until her breath mingled with his. "It's refreshingly honest." The kiss, when it came, was tentative at first, a testing of boundaries. Then, as if a dam had broken, it deepened into something hungry and urgent. Axel pulled her closer, reeing in the feel of her against him, the subtle alien differences that made every touch an exploration. They moved toward Thesmall bed in the corner, shedding clothes and inhibitions with equal fervor. In the dim light, their bodies came together. In a dance as old as time, yet new in its unique pairing of human and Vidian lateras. They lay tangled in sheets near his head, resting on his chest. Axel found himself thinking that whatever dangers tomorrow might bring, this moment, this connection, had been worth it. Dawn broke over Targus 9 with the harsh brilliance typical of desert planets. Axel woke to Nera already up, her slender form silhouetted against the window as she studied something on a handheld datapad. The events of the previous night lingered in his mind. The unexpected connection, the way her emerald skin had seemed to glow in the darkness, the surprising softness of her lips against his. "Morning," he said, his voice still rough with sleep. She turned, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "You humans sleep deeply. I've been up for hours. Planning our suicide mission?" He sat up, running a hand through his tasseled hair. "Something like that." She tossed him the datapad. "The Scourge docked an hour ago. I've mapped the most likely location for the parts we need." Axel studied the schematic, impressed by her thoroughness. "You've done this before." "Thought about it many times," she admitted. "Never had a good reason to risk it until now." There was something in her tone that made him look up. "Just to be clear, we're getting parts for my ship, then getting off this rock together, right? No hidden agendas I should know about." Nera hesitated, just long enough to confirm his suspicions. "The parts are the priority," she said finally. "But there's something else you should know about Vex. I'm listening." She moved to sit beside him on the bed, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her body. "Vex and I. There's history there. He wasn't just my captor." Axel felt a knot form in his stomach. "What kind of history?" "He's my half-brother there." Of all the things she might have said, that was, perhaps, the last Axel expected. Your brother. How is that possible? You're not even the same species, same father, different mothers." "My father was a diplomat who traveled extensively. He had arrangements with women on several worlds." Her voice was matter-of-fact, but Axel could sense the old pain beneath her words. "Vex is half Tauran, half human. I'm half Vidian, half human. You're part human." Axel couldn't hide his surprise. She nodded. "It's why I was drawn to you, I think. There's something familiar in the way you move, the way you think." Her fingers traced a pattern on his arm. "The way you feel." The revelation shifted something in Axel's perception of her. The connection he'd felt wasn't just physical attraction. There was something deeper, a recognition on some fundamental level. "Vex hates his human heritage," Nera continued, "hates what he sees as its weakness. He spent his life proving he's nothing like our father and you. Hairy, iridescent eyes met his. I've spent my life trying to live up to the best parts of both my heritages. My mother's. People value harmony and connection. My father was kind. Principled like you, Axel said softly. A flush darkened her cheeks to a deeper emerald. We should get ready. The scourge never stays docked for long. They prepared in comfortable silence, gathering tools and weapons. Axel couldn't help but watch Nero as she moved around the small space. Seeing her now through the lens of her revelation, the grace he had attributed to her alienature, the directness he'd found surprising, all of it made more sense. Now their plan was simple, but risky. Using Nera's knowledge of the ship and Axel's combat experience, they would infiltrate the scourge during the crew's regular visit to the cantina, locate the necessary parts and escape before anyone realized they'd been there. The trading post was unusually busy. As they made their way toward the docking bay, Vex's crew was immediately identifiable, had a louder, more aggressive, and better armed than the locals who skewered out of their way. Charming bunch, Axel muttered as they ducked behind a cargo container to avoid a particularly rowdy group heading toward the rusty bolt. That's most of them, Nera said, checking her wrist device. There should only be a skeleton crew on board now. They moved quickly through the shadows, reaching the Scourge's docking ramp. Without incident, Nera produced a security bypass that got them through the first checkpoint, and Axel handled the lone guard with a swift, silent takedown. Inside the ship was surprisingly well-maintained, a stark contrast to the ramshackle vessels. Typical of pirates, Nera led them confidently through the corridors, avoiding the main thoroughers. Engineering should be 2 levels down, she whispered, gesturing toward a maintenance shaft. They descended carefully, emerging into a dimly lit corridor that hummed with the ship's power systems. Axel kept his blaster ready as Nero worked on the door to the engineering bay. Got it, she murmured as the lock disengaged with a soft click. The engineering bay was a treasure trove of parts and equipment, far better stock than Axel had dared hope. Nera moved with purpose, identifying and collecting the components they needed while Axel kept watch. This is too easy, he said, knees prickling at the back of his neck. Don't jinx it, Nera replied, stuffing the last part into her pack. Let's go, before a muffled sound from behind a sealed door caught their attention. They froze, listening. It came again. Definitely a voice or voices calling out. What's in there? Axel asked, nodding toward the door, near a frown. Storage, according to the schematics, should be empty. Another sound, louder this time, unmistakably, a cry for help. Their eyes met, a silent communication, passing between them. With a nod, Axel moved to the door while NRA worked on bypassing its security. The door slid open to reveal a nightmare. The storage area had been converted into a makeshift holding cell, packed with at least 20 aliens of various species. They were chained to the walls and floor, many bearing signs of abuse and malnutrition. The stench of unwashed bodies and fear hit Axel like a physical blow. Stars above. Nera breathed, her face paling to a lighter shade of green. A small, feathered alien near the door looked up at them with desperate eyes. Help! It croaked in broken standard. Please help! Axel felt rage building inside him, hot and dangerous. Slaves. Worse, Nera said, her voice tight. Merchandise. Vex supplies rare species to collectors and fighting pits. The plan to grab the parts and go evaporated instantly. Axel knew, looking at the suffering beings before him, that he couldn't leave them. One glance at Nera told him she felt the same. We need to get them out, he said. That complicates thing, huh? She replied, already examining the restraints. A lot. Complications are my specialty. Began working on the nearest set of chains. How long until the crew returns? Not long enough. Nera's fingers flew over the control panel. And there's something else you should know. Axel looked up, sensing the tension in her voice. Vex is still on board. He never goes to the cantina with the others, too risky. As if summoned by her words, a cold voice spoke from the doorway behind them. Hello, sister, I see you've brought me a present. Captain Vex was nothing like Axel had imagined. Despite Nero's revelation about his half-Taurian, half-human heritage, Axel had expected someone more obviously alien. Instead, Vex appeared almost entirely human, except for the subtle ridge of horns that began at his temples and swept back along his scalp, partially concealed by dark hair pulled into a tight knot. His eyes, however, were pure tauren jet black with no visible iris, like looking into twin voids. Those eyes now regarded Axel with cold amusement before shifting to Nera. "I always knew you'd come back to me, little sister," Vex said, his voice surprisingly melodic for someone sumnacing. "Though I must say your taste in companions has deteriorated." Axel positioned himself slightly in front of Nera, a protective gesture that wasn't lost on Vex, whose thin lips curved into a smirk. "How touching. The human thinks he can protect you." Vex's hand rested casually on the ornate blaster at his hip. "You haven't told him, have you? What happens to your lovers?" "Shut up, Vex." Nera hissed, her composure cracking for the first time since Axel had met her. "I'll take that as a no." Vex's gaze returned to Axel. "She's quite the collector herself, you know. Gathers men like trophies, uses them, then discards them when they bore her." Just like our father, Axel felt Nera tense beside him, but kept his focus on Vex. The pirate captain was trying to drive a wedge between them. A classic tactic to divide enemies. "I'm not interested in your family drama," Axel said evenly. "We're taking these people and leaving." Vex laughed, a sound utterly devoid of humor. "Are you now, and how exactly do you plan to accomplish that? My crew will be returning shortly, and you're trapped in my ship." Behind them, the captives watched, with fearful eyes, hope and dread wearing on their faces. Axel knew they couldn't fight their way out. Not with so many vulnerable people to protect, and not against Vex's entire crew. A plan formed in his mind, risky, perhaps suicidal, but it might work. "Your crew doesn't need Toby involved," Axel said, taking a deliberate step forward. "This is between us now, Manto Man." Vex's black eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting?" "A challenge, you and me. If I win, we take the captives and leave. If you win." Axel shrugged. "Well, I'll be dead. And you can do whatever you want with Nera and the others." "Axel, no," Nero whispered urgently, grabbing his arm. "You don't know what he's capable of." He covered her hand with his own, giving it a reassuring squeeze without taking his eyes off Vex. "Trust me." Vex studied him with newfound interest. "A human, challenging me to combat, that's novel. What makes you think I'd agree to such terms when I could simply kill you both right now?" "Because you're bored," Axel replied simply. "I can see it in your eyes. You've conquered this backwater planet, terrorized. Its people built your little empire of misery, and for what, there's no challenge in it anymore, no thrill." Something flickered in those black eyes, recognition perhaps, or surprise at being so easily read. "Besides," Axel continued, "wouldn't it be more satisfying to beat me in front of your sister, to prove once and for all which half of your heritage is stronger?" That struck a nerve. Vex's jaw tightened, the ridge of horns seeming to darken slightly with his changing mood. "Very well, human. I accept your challenge." Vex's hand moved from his blaster to a wicked-looking knife at his belt. "We fight with blades. No energy weapons. First blood drawn from the neck ends it." Axel nodded, trying not to show his relief. Blades he could handle. Had trained with various edged weapons during his time with the Frontier Corps. It leveled the playing field somewhat. Nera, Vex said without looking at her. "Take our guests to the cargo bay. They'll want to witness this." His smile was predatory. It's not every day they get to see a human die for their freedom. Nera hesitated, her eyes meeting Axel's in a silent exchange. He gave her the slightest nod, trying to convey his plan without words. After a moment, she turned to the captives and began organizing their move to the cargo bay, whispering instructions as she worked on their restraints. Vex led the way through the ship's corridors, Axel following at a cautious distance. They emerged into the cargo bay, a vast space currently half empty, with loading equipment pushed against the walls, perfect for what Axel had in mind. As Nera guided the freed captives to one side of the bay, Vex removed his ornate jacket and drew his knife, a curved blade with serrations along one edge. Axel unsheathed his own knife, a simpler but well-balanced weapon he'd carried for years. "Before we begin, Vex said, twirling his blade with practiced ease. I'm curious, what is it about my sister that has you willing to? Is it the exotic color of her skin, the way she moves? Or perhaps it's the human in her that calls to you? Maybe. I just don't like bullies, Axel replied, settling into a fighting stance. Vex laughed. Noble sentiment, very human. Spat the last word like a curse. Let's see if nobility keeps you alive. He attacked without further warning, the blade whistling through the air where Axel's throat had been a split second earlier. Axel pivoted, using Vex's momentum against him, but the pirate recovered with inhuman speed, slashing again. They circled each other, trading feints and probing attacks. Vex was faster than any human Axel had fought, but there was a predictability to his movements, a reliance on superior strength and speed rather than technique. You fight well, Vex acknowledged after a particularly close exchange left a shallow cut on Axel's forearm for a human. You keep saying that like it's an insult, Axel replied, circling to his left. But I've noticed something about you, Vex. For someone who hates his human half so much, you sure act like one. Vex's expression darkened. What the ego, the need to dominate, the cruelty for its own sake. Axel dodged another attack. Those aren't Taurian traits. Taurans are pragmatic, efficient, your brand of sadism. Well, that's all human. The worst of humanity, but human nonetheless. With a roar of rage, Vex lunged forward. His control, slipping Axel as sidestepped, caught the pirate's wrist and used his own momentum to slam him into a cargo container. The impact was thunderous, denting the metal, but Vex recovered quickly, spinning with a backhand that caught Axel across the jaw, sending him staggering. The pirate pressed his advantage, driving Axel back with a flurry of attacks that left him defending desperately. From the corner of his eye, Axel saw Nera leading the captives toward an emergency exit. Good, his plan was working. Keep Vex distracted while she got them to safety. A searing pain across his ribs brought his attention sharply back to the fight. Vex had scored a hit, not deep but painful. The pirate's black eyes gleamed with triumph. First blood to me, Vex said, though not from the neck, so we continue. Your human reflexes are failing you. Axel took a steadying breath, centering himself. He'd been in worse situations against worse odds, and he had something Vex didn't, someone worth fighting for. His gaze flicked briefly to Nera, who had paused at the exit, her iridescent eyes wide with concern. In that moment, seeing her there, fierce, determined, beautiful, Axel knew with sudden clarity that what had begun as attraction had become something deeper, something worth risking everything for. With renewed focus, he faced Vex again, his stance shifting subtly into an offensive position. My human reflexes are just fine, Axel said with a grim smile. Let me show you your problem, Vex, Axel said as he circled the pirate captain. Is that you've spent so long running from your human side? Yeah, that you never learned its strengths? Vex sneered, his black eyes tracking Axel's movements with predatory focus. What strength could humanity possibly offer that Taurian blood doesn't already provide? Adaptability. Axel feinted left, then dropped low as Vex countered, scoring a shallow cut across the pirate's thigh. Creativity heralded, away from a vicious downward strike that would have pinned his hand to the deck. And most importantly, Axel grabbed a handful of loose cargo netting from the floor and flung it at Vex's face. The pirates lashed through it easily, but the momentary distraction was all Axel needed. He surged forward inside Vex's guard and pressed his blade against the pirate's throat. And we fight dirty when we have to. Vex froze the cold metal against his skin. For a moment, neither man moved. Go ahead, Vex whispered, his voice strangely calm. Finish it. Show my sister what humans are really capable of. Axel held the blade steady, feeling Vex's pulse against the edge. It would be so easy. One quick movement and this monster would never hurt anyone again. Never hurt Nero again. Axel Nera's urgent voice cut through his thoughts. They're coming back. The crew is returning early. The distant sound of the outer airlock cycling confirmed her warning. Vex's lips curled into a triumphant smile. Seems our duel has been interrupted, he said. What will you do now? Human, kill me and face my crew, or run and prove your weakness? Axel made his decision in an instant. With a swift movement, he slammed the hilt of his knife against Vex's temple. The pirate crumpled unconscious but alive. Neither. Axel told the unconscious form as he retrieved his knife. I'm going to save these people and take your sister away from you. That's a far better revenge. He sprinted to where Nera stood with the freed captives at the emergency exit. Her eyes widened when she saw him approaching alone. Is he unconscious? Axel said, checking the corridor beyond the exit. Where does this lead? Lower maintenance deck, but we'll be trapped there when the crew returns. Nera's fingers flew over the control panel. We need another way out. The sound of voices echoed from the main corridor, Vex's crew returning from their shore leave. They had minutes at most before they were discovered. Axel scanned the cargo bay, his gaze landing on a ventilation grate near the ceiling. There, the ventilation system. Nera followed his gaze and nodded. It connects to the entire ship. We could reach the auxiliary hangar. Are there shuttles? There one, maybe two. She turned to the captives, speaking rapidly in a language Axel didn't understand. They nodded, fear evident in their various alien features, but determination there too. Working quickly, they stacked cargo containers to reach the ventilation grate. Axel pried it open with his knife, wincing as the wound on his side protested the movement. You first, he told Nera, helping her climb into the opening. She disappeared into the darkness, then reached back to help the first of the captives. One by one, they lifted the freed prisoners into the ventilation shaft. Some were too weak to climb on their own, requiring Axel to boost them up bodily. The smallest aliens went first, followed by the medium-sized ones. They largest, a hulking four-armed being with mottled blue skin, looked at the shaft dubiously. I will not fit, it rumbled in broken standard. I will stay fight. No, Axel said firmly. We all get out together. He turned to Nera. Is there